Hello everyone, welcome to this video. And in this video, myself Iqbal and my friends, our group from ICT2 2020 Telkom University, we would like to talk about fiscal policies. We would like to talk about its definitions, its example, why is it important, and the facts about it. So let's just start it from the definition.
Hi, my name is Rashad Amar Fadil Al-Hadi. For now, I'd like to explain about fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is a policy made by the government by increasing or decreasing state revenue or budget. The government has the authority to determine the amount of the budget or revenue to be spent on certain programs. This policy was made with intention of influencing the running of the economy and maintaining economic balance within the country. This policy making is based on none other than John Maynard Keynes' theory of the function of fiscal policy. In this theory, Keynes believed that an increase of decrease in income and expenditure could affect the country's economy. This policy can increase inflation, cash flow, and overcome unemployment in a country. Through this policy, aggregate expenditure can be increased, which can have an impact on national income and the level of employment. In addition, the aggregate demand regarding the amount of goods and service produced at a certain price level is also a measure of the country's success. From the above understanding, it's actually already written what the main purpose of why the government is implementing fiscal policy. The main objective of implementing this policy is for economic stability or price stability. For future review of the purpose of this policy, see the following. Number one is economic growth. High economic growth in a country is the goal of the implementation of fiscal policy. When the economy increases, the development of business is increasingly real and people will get high income as well. High community income becomes a measure of the overall welfare of the nation. The government's effort to encourage economic growth through a fiscal policy is to reduce taxes. That way, people can spend more of their income, which is actually able to increase investment and business income. When government spending is higher, economic growth will be spurred to continue increasing. Two, preventing unemployment. The prevention of unemployment is the main objective of this policy. Failure and achieve full employment or unemployment will result in not achieving high levels of national income. In addition, unemployment prevents the economic growth rate from growing optimally and may decline with the implementation of the right fiscal policy. Unemployment can be prevented so that national output continues to grow. This is because full unemployment opportunities can be achieved and the national income is high and rate of economic growth is getting better. And number three is price stability. Another goal of implementing fiscal policy is to maintain general prices at a reasonable level. If the general price drops sharply, it will encourage unemployment because the business sector loses opportunities to gain profits. This condition causes companies to terminate their work relation, which result in a large number of unemployed. Conversely, if generally prices are rising sharply and continue to rise, it will have a good impact on the economy. An increase in general price or inflation is able to create full employment opportunity and benefit some organs, but low-income people will still suffer because the value of money continues to decline and make them poorer. After knowing the meaning of fiscal policy in depth, The next discussion that will become important information, the type of fiscal policy. In general, these policies are divided into two types, namely expansionary policies and contractional policies, which are discussed further below. Number one is expansive. This is type of policy is usually applied when a country experiences reasons of deflation that is serious enough to stimulate economic growth again. Through this policy, the government will reduce taxes or spend large amount of money or both. The purpose of this policy is to make consumers hold more money. When people hold more money, they will spend more also, which is useful for stimulating economic growth. Number two is contractional. In contrast to previous types of policies, constructive policies are implemented to inhibit the rate of economic growth. It is strange if this policy is implemented because the high rate of economic growth can benefit the country. However, this does not apply to countries that experience high inflation. It turns out that not only is deflation detrimental, but inflation that is too high can also have a negative impact. I think that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Once again, my name is Iqbal, and now, after definition, I would like to talk about the examples of fiscal policies. As we know that the global economic condition, including Indonesia, is still facing uncertainties due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These are estimated to still be occurring until next year. Therefore, the government will continue their constructive policies to face the situation, and one of it is to establish fiscal policy priorities in the 2021 draft of national budget. The first fiscal policy priority is to continue and accelerate the National Economic Recovery Program. Measures in the health sector regarding the prevention of the COVID-19 outbreak so that it can be controlled is very important in economic recovery, because the root of this problem is the existence of a virus that infects many humans, so that it disrupts human interaction and has implications for economic turnaround. In line with this, the government's economic recovery program policies were also prioritized by strengthening the domestic economy to make it more resilient and competitive. Furthermore, the priority for fiscal policy in 2021 is strengthening structural reforms. Structural reform will be carried out by continuing to improve the investment in climate and economic competitiveness program, as well as improving the quality of human resources to increase productivity through education and health policies. The Deputy Minister of Finance stated that the budget reform program will be the third fiscal policy priority in 2021. This program includes reforms in the state revenue sector on both the tax side and non-tax state revenue, or in Indonesia, PNBP, as well as on fiscal transfer policies. Then, improving the quality of state spending and increasing long-term fiscal. Sustainability are also part of the budgeting reform program. The fourth main priority for fiscal 2021 is the program to accelerate national development. This translates into accelerating development priorities in health sector reform, education reform, infrastructure, information technology, and national food security. As we can see from the picture, this is the Deputy Minister of Finance, Suhasil Nazarawan, giving a keynote speech at the Standard Chartered Asian Country Investment Webinar. From what is presented in the picture, we can see that there are four fiscal policy priorities in 2021. First are continuing and accelerating the national economic recovery. Second is strengthening the structural reforms. Third is budget reform, and fourth, national development priorities.
Hi, I'm Nazwa Sharifuddin and want to explain the importance of fiscal policy. So, the purpose of defining fiscal policy is to balance the effects of the modified tax rate and public spending. For example, the government could try and simulate a slow-growing economy by increasing spending. This increase in spending was due to lower taxes by the government. However, this reduction in tax rates can cause inflation to rise. This is because the inflow of money into the system is high as consumer demand increases and causes a decrease in the value of money. This implies that more money is required to purchase the same item that was available at the previously lower price. With more money entering the economy because of the lower amount of taxes, consumer demands for goods and services increases. This leads to business growth and transforms the country's economy from slow growing to active. However, this also needs to be controlled. A steady decline in taxes and increase in consumer spending can cause too much money to enter the system. This can lead to an increased inflation so that production costs increase. This has implications for a decrease in consumer purchasing power. Fiscal policy needs to be closely watched so that the economy remains productive and does not suffer from uncontrolled inflation. And the importance of fiscal policy for economic stabilization, that is that we know that the economy doesn't always run smoothly. So often there are fluctuations in the level of economy activity. Sometimes economies find themselves in the grip of a recession when levels of national income, output, and employment are far below their full potential levels. During a recession, there is a lot of productive capacity that is idle or not being used. That is, the available machines and factories are not working at full capacity. As a result, labor and employment increases along with excess capital stock. On the other hand, sometimes the economy is overheated, which means that inflations like price increases occurs in the economy. So, in a free market economy, there's a lot of economic instability. Classical economists believe that automatic mechanisms work to restore economic stability. The recession will heal itself and inflation will be controlled automatically. However, the empirical evidence during the 1930s, when a severe depression occurred in Western capitalist economies, as well as the post-War II period, evidence is sufficient to show that there are no automatic mechanisms at work to bring about stability in economy. That is why Keynes advocated intervention by the government to cure depression and inflation by adopting appropriate macroeconomy policy tools, where fiscal policy is one of them. According to him, monetary policy is not effective in lifting the economy from depression. He emphasized the role of fiscal policy as an effective tool to stabilize the economy. However, in the view of modern economists, fiscal and monetary policy play a useful role in stabilizing the economy. Thus, three important goals or objectives of fiscal policy are as follows. 1. Economic stability at high levels of output and employment. 2. Price stability. And 3. Economic growth. We will limit ourselves to a discussion of the role of fiscal policy in achieving economic stability at the full employment rate and in controlling inflation and deflation and thereby achieving price stability. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Aras Kofik, and my group, which is Group 5, we're gonna talk about fiscal policy. So what's a fiscal policy? Fiscal policy measure employed by government to stabilize the economy, especially by manipulating the level and allocation of taxes and government expenditure. Fiscal measures are frequently used in tandem with monetary policy to achieve certain goals. So in this picture you can see the founder of fiscal policy, which is John Maynard Keynes. According to Keynes, it is very common for an economy to operate with an output gap, especially in the short run. Any change in aggregate demand and or aggregate supply might distort the economy away from equilibrium and cause fluctuation. Consequently, this would require government intervention through the use of counter-cycle policy called stabilization policies. So what's the meaning of stabilization policy? While the classical view favors an economy that operates and adjusts itself automatically without government intervention, the Keynesian view promotes deliberate use of government policy to decrease the intensity of economic fluctuation, such as recession and inflation. These policies are referred to stabilization policy. Stabilization policy can be used to change aggregate demand and improve the economic performance. However, the extent of the success of this policy in achieving the macroeconomic goals will depend on the type of shock the economy is facing. One example of stabilization policy is fiscal policy, which is based on deliberate changes in two major components: government spending and taxes. These actions are discretionary or active, in the sense that the Congress and the federal government needs to approve them. Here are a list of various items under government expenditure and taxes in the US. Now let's then compare between expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. Shall we start talking about expansionary fiscal policy first? Recession is an economic downturn usually marked with a decrease in the employment and output rate, as well as a decrease in the price level. The government that intends to interfere to correct the recession will use discretionary expansionary fiscal policy. Recession may be due to several factors such as drop in aggregate demand, drop in investment, lower expectation about profits. As a result of recession, the real GDP decreases. The government can choose to increase the level of government spending, reduce taxes, or use combination of these two in order to increase aggregate output again. Expansionary fiscal policy is hence used to increase output and reduce unemployment. The lower taxes and higher government spending result in greater increase in aggregate demand due to the multiplier effect. However, if revenue from taxes are not enough to finance the increase in government spending, the government budget will be in deficit. Here are the graph of expansionary fiscal policy. Graphically, the expansionary fiscal policy will cause an outward shift in aggregate demand curve because government spending, which is G, is a direct component of AD. Alternatively, a reduction in taxes would leave households with higher disposable income and firms with higher profits. The extent of shift in AD curve due to fiscal policy is also determined by the power of the multiplier. Now let's move on talking about contractionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy is implemented when the aggregate demand is increasing and causing an increase in the general price. The purpose from this discretionary policy is to decrease inflation. Moreover, if the government has a high debt, it can use contractionary fiscal policy by reducing the government spending and increasing tax revenue to pay off the debt. Here are the graph of contractionary fiscal policy. Graphically, the contractionary fiscal policy will cause an inward shift in the aggregate demand curve because government spending, which is G, is a direct component of AD. The increase in taxes would leave households with lower disposable income and firms with lower profits. The extent of the shift in the AD curve in this case is also determined by the power of the multiplier.
Well, I think that is all from us in this video. I hope we all can learn something from what we have talked about fiscal policies. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next time.